My name is Paul Ehrlich. I'm part of the board of the Minnesota Guild of Woodworkers, and one of my responsibilities is I'm the co-chair for the annual fall seminar. And uh, Ed has just informed me, because my history is not as strong as his, is that we've been doing the seminar since 1984, and that our original, or one of our original presenters, was Sam Maloof. And I know when we did the last fall's seminar, we have a tradition of attaching the presenter's nameplate onto the workbench, and Sam's name is on the far left, and Gary's name from last year is on the far right. And I just told Chris, I think we have one slot left, and then we're going to need to get creative and add a second row or something onto this. So um, every year when we do the fall seminar, our goal is to bring in a nationally known woodworker, somebody who has something special to share with us. And um, I have the unenviable position of trying to find somebody that would like to come in and spend some time in the fall in Minnesota with us, and spend 3 days uh, working with our members. And this year I got a great suggestion to approach Chris Martin. And one of the things that to me was really appealing about Chris when we first talked to him is that he has spent his career as an educator. Often we'll bring somebody in and they're a fantastic woodworker, but kind of managing the time and managing the room is a challenge. Chris knows how to herd cats, and he knows how to herd students, and knows how to keep them straight and narrow. We also have a tradition, and Chris, I'm going to shut up in a few minutes here. We
Okay.
also have a tradition of asking our presenter usually to come back and judge for the next spring's Northern Woods exposition. And this year, because of some scheduling issues, we actually ended up with Chris coming in advance. And Chris was one of our judges. If you won, you're very happy about that. If you didn't, you're not so happy. But Chris is one of our judges for this April's Northern Woods.
I wasn't the only judge. I
You
will
weren't
say.
the only judge. You're one of three judges.
Okay, exactly.
Um, but one of the things that was great about that is I had a chance to spend some time with Chris and learn a little bit about him and his background. And he'll tell you more about this. But Chris has had this fantastic career. I mean, he's got a lot of strong educational criteria. He's taught design and woodworking for many years, but he also decided late in his career to get involved with the Peace Corps, and has spent time in Africa and in India. And this really influenced his work and his design and what he brings to the table for us. So um, I asked Chris if we could spend an hour or so with him today, and just have him a chance, give him a chance to talk about his perspective and his view, and hopefully give all of us a little bit better understanding of who he is and what we can expect when we're all together at St. Paul College, November 1st through 3rd. Uh, the only last commercial part here is we do have an early bird registration special. It expires the end of September, so now is a great time to register. I think it's $100 for members instead of 145. So with that, Chris, I'm going to turn this over to you and
Okay.
let you take it away.
All right. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Um, as Paul said, I am Chris Martin, and I kind of give you a little bit of context, and I'm going to give you a tour of my shop. So basically, what I want to do is I'm going to give you a tour of my shop, and then I'm going to do a PowerPoint, and which will kind of introduce the work I do, and some of the influences. And then I am going to talk about the project that I'm going to work on and at the seminar. So, a little bit of context. I am from Iowa. I grew up in Southeast Iowa. I went to Iowa State University, got my undergrad degree in craft design in 1990. And then I ran off to Colorado and met my had a girlfriend. We met at um, Iowa State, and then she graduated a year before me because I was on the 5-year plan. She was on the 4-year plan, and that's a long story too. We can talk about that later over drinks. But anyway, she got a position, got a job in California, and we agreed on meeting halfway in Colorado was halfway. So we met in Colorado. I got a job up by Aspen at a cabinet shop, high-end cabinet shop, like very high-end cabinet shop. And one of the things I always kind of talked about is I learned a little bit about design in undergrad school, started in jewelry, actually started in architecture. I was in the architecture program for 2 years, took a metal design class, always loved using my hands. And so I got to make stuff, I got to design stuff and make stuff. And the metals professor said, what are you doing in architecture? You should be a fine arts major. And I said, okay, I'll change my major. So I changed my major and I did jewelry design for a year. And then I discovered furniture, and I relate to the scale of furniture. So I changed kind of my focus to furniture design. So I always say architecture is too big, jewelry is too small, and furniture was just right. So you'll see in my work, if you have not seen my work already, you'll see in my work that I have a real mix of materials. I'm a woodworker, I'm a metal worker. I love working in cast resin. I've done cast rubber, I've done glass, I've done kind of everything. So anyways, Colorado, went to grad school at Rhode Island School of Design, graduated in 94, moved back to Colorado, and basically started my own business, which was at that point in time was called Art Forms Furniture, still in the Roaring Fork Valley, which is the Aspen to Glenwood Springs, and did work for people up there for 6 years. And then, so this is the context. We're in Colorado now. And in 1997, Tammy, my wife's parents, retired from John Deere in Waterloo, Iowa. And we convinced them to move to Colorado. And so we spent a year and a half looking for properties around Colorado. They wanted to buy an acreage. We were going to live in the house together. I actually designed the house with living space below, living space above. And I would build a shop, and I would keep doing my thing out here. And I had my metals professor contacted me from Iowa State after we had found the property and said, hey, wood position's open, are you interested? And I said, no, not really, because we're going to do this. And further discussions and some other stuff happened, and I'm like, you know what, I've always wanted to teach, so let's do that. So I got a position at Iowa State, moved back to Iowa. We kind of jokingly say we crossed each other on the interstate. They were driving out to Colorado to build a house, and we were driving back to Iowa to teach. And we said, we'll be back in 5 years. And I got a tenure track position. So that was a temporary position, applied for the tenure track position. I got that. And so 23 years later, I retired from Iowa State in 2022. We went to Iowa State in 1999, retired in 2022. And we moved back out here, built a house, built a shop, and we're on the same property as them, about 100 yards away. So that is kind of the context of where we are. So we moved in December, and my shop is still kind of in a bit of disarray, but I'm going to give you a tour. And what I figure we'll do is I'll give you the tour, and then I tell you what, as we go through this, ask questions as we're going along, because there might be something, and I'm going to be not utterly thorough. I'm not going to open every single drawer, but I'll kind of try to go through it in a little bit of detail. Okay, so here we go. This part's going to be a little bit clunky. Tammy is going to do the camera for me, and I will walk through. So speak up if you have any questions as we go through this.
Okay. And if you have questions, you can always raise your hand in Zoom as well, and we'll look out for you.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi. Okay, I got it. I just gotta get you.
We've been in Tammy's office. So that's part of, basically the house that we built is 2,400 square foot space underneath. She's got about 120 square feet of office. And then she continues to work for Iowa State. And then my shop is the rest of that space. So we will go out here. We'll start here. This is kind of the bit of disarray, but this is my shop. Okay, and I would say probably the coolest part of this shop is the view. So I'm gonna open this door. So I have two overhead doors that are glass, so I get great sunlight year round. I don't get sun in the shop until winter. In that winter, I want sun in the shop. In the summer, the sun is so high that I kind of designed it to make sure that the sun doesn't come in the summer. So we're actually this time of year, we're starting to get it. So I'm gonna open this door because I'm gonna show off our view. So we are on, basically, we're on 42 acres. Tammy's parents' house is up at the top of the hill, and this is the view that we have here. We have 4 head of cattle, so not only am I a woodworker, but we're also ranchers, big time ranchers, 42 acres, 4 cows. And
Having trouble
Yeah.
with the light, but yeah,
oh yeah.
okay.
Okay. While we're out here, I've got 2 shipping containers. One of them has all of my jigs and stuff from all the different furniture pieces, and some upholstery foam, other stuff, packing blankets. And then the left-hand one is full of wood. And I also have on the property next door, there's a big, building, and I have a ton of white oak in there. That, if you guys remember the derecho that happened in 2020 that went across to Iowa, I had a friend that had a farm north of Ames and lost a whole bunch of bur oak trees. And I turned them all into lumber, and all of the flooring, all of the casing and baseboard in the house is made out of all of that. And then I have a whole bunch left over. So I've got a bunch of white oak. So everything I make here until I retire is gonna be white oak. Kind of cheap.
Bobcat's not ours.
Yeah, Bobcat's not ours. Somebody asked. I wish it
No,
was.
I'm just saying, because I know guys in equipment. I just thought I'd mention it.
Okay, so the shop. I have a very small lathe. I actually just ordered a new lathe. And I tell you what, we could talk about this. I was a little frustrated in shopping for lathes because I'm not a bolt turner. I actually built a good lathe to do mostly spindles. And I'll show you a couple of my pieces. I do a lot of spindles now, but there's all kinds of information online for when you're shopping for lathes for doing bolt turning and stuff, but there's not a lot of information for just a good basic shop lathe. What I ended up getting is a shop box from Grizzly because they had them on sale for $1,000 off. And I looked at all the reviews and I kind of bit the bullet, and all the reviews were good. So kind of fingers crossed that it's a good lathe. But then I've got, oh, by the way, I don't really have a loyalty to any specific brand of tool. I kind of shop it out. I actually kind of cursed a little bit with trying to find the cheapest thing, and that's not the best way to buy woodworking equipment, but I actually have gotten a little bit better at that. But anyway, so all of my tools are kind of different, run the gamut of, from Jet to Grizzly to Saw Stop. What else do I have? I've got a other bandsaw. We'll look at those in a minute. But anyway, so yeah, basic drill press. And then, oh, the other thing, I don't know if you guys noticed, but this space is not carpeted. This is my kind of make a mess area, but I have carpeted my shop. And there's a Habitat Restore in Des Moines that had all these 2 foot by 2 foot squares, and I think I paid $2 a piece for them. And I covered all the floor with this. And I decided that I am getting too old to stand on concrete for the rest of my life, so, did that. So, I have a saw stop, table saw. Let's see. Behind that wall is a Quincy 60-gallon compressor, and then I run lines. And I have lines, I have a line right here, a hose right here, and I have a line that runs next to my bench, which we'll see in a minute. And then I have a line that runs into my metal shop. Dust collection, I did Clearview, and the dust collector runs all around the shop. That was kind of a pain in the butt, to be quite honest, but I'm happy with it now. It's working great. So I have some bits and pieces that I need to readjust, and it's on my list over there to do. I just got done doing a show in Jackson Hole, which was an utter flop. I made 20 pieces in 2.5 months and thought I would sell every single one, and I didn't sell a single thing, and it was very frustrating. Somebody commented that my stuff is contemporary, and it's a little too contemporary for that market. That market's a little more traditional, and they're looking for antlers, they're looking for slab tables, that kind of stuff. So, which, by the way, since we're standing here, here's a few pieces of my work.
Go through them and show us.
What's that?
Yeah, show us one. Yeah, that's what.
This is a table. It's a hall table. Okay. And somebody, my mother-in-law commented that it looks like a really nice ironing board, which I thought, okay, I'll accept that. But yeah, so hall table, this is a music stand, kind of interesting story. I got a commission to do this music stand, probably 12 years ago. And it was a couple of kids that actually were going. I was thinking the mom just was getting her doctorate in music from University of Iowa, and they wanted to give her a neat present for that. So they commissioned me to do the music stand for her. And, you know, I think I'm kind of proud of is the cool thing is the hardware and stuff, which is, if you guys don't know about McMaster Car, everybody should know about McMaster Car. So
Chris, is the stand itself, is that metalwork or woodwork?
yeah, okay, so I'm sorry. Yeah, this is all plasma cut steel, bronze for the rest. And then the bottom is steel, and then this is a bent laminated piece of cherry is the back. So, yep. And that's, again, you know, back to that, my stuff is a real mix of materials. It's kind of funny, so the hall table is mesquite on the top, and then the bottom is cherry that I've milk painted and then distressed, and then it's got brass rivets holding it all together. And it was kind of funny because AI online on the when I was doing the PowerPoint, it said it called it hall table wood with iron legs. I thought was kind of funny, so I faked it out. And then this is the bourbon chair. So I kind of, for some reason, I got into this making chairs for drinks, and so I did this chair, and it is, you know, so the wood parts are oak. So this is oak and it's burned. So thinking about the inside of a barrel for bourbon, and then this is buffalo hide. And then the back is African cloth, and which I thought was kind of fun to do, you know, this African cloth on a bourbon chair. This has this Western feel to it.
It's really hard to get your head in the picture and the thing, because you're too tall. Okay. That's better. Just squat down.
So, all right, let's see what else. Chop saw. Chop saw.
Okay, tough.
Well, and then I made this thing for storing short pieces and stuff. It's kind of a disaster right now. I need to work on that. And then this thing behind it is a set of cabinets and then pegboard. You'll see the other side of it, but it's kind of a room divider. I was thinking maybe at some point I have an apprentice working in here with me. That's another conversation, but, I kind of saw this as kind of being the room dividers, so they would have their space and I would have my space. They have to stand on concrete because you have to bide your time. So, this set of drawers, one of the things the things I made when I started doing doing the shop, designing the shop, it said everything's behind a drawer, behind a door, or in a drawer. So I built a lot of drawers and doors. So this came from Iowa. I brought this with me, the outfeed table. So it's got, all sorts of top blades and stuff are in here. And then whatever else, I decided it was a good place to put it. So I think this is it. So just this router table. I have had a router table mounted in the side of the table saw. So I went from in Iowa, I had an oversized 2-car garage was my shop for 22 years. And it's been very nice to move into this big shop. And so there I had to think about space and how to use space efficiently. And so router table was in the table saw, which actually worked fantastic. Now though, it doesn't work very well because I've got this pillar right next to the table saw and you have to stand against the pillar to run stuff through the router table. So kind of a pain in the butt. So I got a router table and that don't quite know where I'm going to put it yet, but it will live here for now. And it's the exact same height as this. So actually, if I have issues where if I've got a really long piece that I'm cutting, I can use it as an additional outfeed table, or I can put it over on the side of the table saw for really wide pieces if I'm cutting something like that. Okay. All right. So then I set up all of these shelves and everything in tubs. And this is kind of and again, I still have work to do, but this is kind of my stuff that I need or will use more often than not. So all of that stuff is here. I've got, like for example, I've got these, I love these bins. These are crafted bins and I think I got them. I actually ordered them on Amazon, but so my 6-inch sanding discs go in here. I've got a thing for 5-inch sanding discs and all my different sanding stuff. Electrical stuff, epoxy stuff, and then other miscellaneous bits and pieces. So this big bandsaw is what is this? It's a Harvey. I don't know, does anybody else have a Harvey bandsaw?
I've used a Harvey table saw. They're really nice.
Oh, yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. And I love it. Absolutely love it. And apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, Harvey or the company is the maker of like Laguna and a number of other tools. And they just decided to have put their own name on some of the tools. So I bought this for resawing, specifically resawing. And so I do a lot of resawing. The work that I do because I'm doing vent laminations, I'm doing veneers, I'm doing that kind of stuff. So I got that for that. Okay. And then I've got a Delta Edge sander. Absolutely love it. Never had an edge sander. I do a lot of subtle curves. So for example, here's some legs for a chair that I do. You'll see a picture of it later. But this is steam vent. I started doing these in vent lamination. But to do templates and stuff, I'm always doing these really subtle templates. And it's hard to cut these really well on a bandsaw. So I got an edge sander and absolutely love having it. So you want to hear my story that you'll be envious of me? So the Festool, I kind of was one of those. that thought fest tools were only rich guys, and it can't be any better than any other tool. And real quick, I got on eBay. I was looking for, and actually kind of not the greatest store in the world, but and these are the other fest tools that I ended up getting. But I was going to order a joiner planer, and I thought I was getting ready to order it, and it was what was it? It was Laguna. And then I get ready to order it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to check on eBay and see if they have that available on eBay. I got on eBay, and lo and behold, there was one available. And so I ordered it, and I ended up talking to the guy because we had to talk about shipping and stuff. And he said, "Oh, by the way, I got a bunch of test tools," and he didn't even tell me what they were, but he said, "There's 5 or 6 of them, and give me $250 and I'll send those with the joiner planer, I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I did that, and I ended up with a shop vac, domino, a bunch of dominoes, a drill, a jigsaw, and 2 sanders. And I mean, it was absolutely amazing. The joiner planer got destroyed in shipping, and UPS said that they couldn't prove that they were the ones that damaged it. So I got $600 out of the deal, and I think I paid, what did I pay? Like $3,000 for it. So at the end of the day, I kind of lost my tail. But we got a bunch of fest tools for $250, but I didn't really. So, but I'm ignoring the math. So anyway, since we're here, this is kind of my main work area. I actually have my workbench is, since you guys, Tammy commented on, I'm 6'6", so I have a hard time with standard height workbenches. So I got this bench, and it's actually a scissor lift workbench, or a scissor lift table. And I can do this because a lot of stuff I do, I will need to work on top of it so I can drop the table down, and then I need to work on the lower part of it so I can bring the table up. So it is absolutely fantastic. The one thing that I will say I don't like about it, and I'm gonna build, at some point I'm gonna build a traditional joinery bench, but when you're doing joinery and stuff, it moves a lot. So it's a good assembly table, and it's good for standard work, but if I have to do shaping or something that's gonna require, a lot of stress on the table, this table rocks a lot. So that kind of bugs me, but.
Question, Chris?
Yeah.
I noticed you don't have a lot of dog holes and so forth, and I was followed, I think it's Ian Kirby, who also didn't use those. Do you prefer not to have a lot of like holding devices and so forth on your bench?
I do, and actually, that's funny that you say that, because today I meant to drill my dog holes here, but I didn't have time to do it. And the other thing, like I was just saying earlier, I think I was gonna set this up to do that kind of stuff, but if I'm using a hand plane on here, it wobbles so much that it's not gonna be that accurate. So I think what I will do is hold off and I will do dog holes there, but I'm gonna hold off and do all that stuff on a more traditional joinery bench. Does that answer your question? Yeah, so, which by the way, I got these, this is a little kind of jumping down a rabbit hole, but Abernathy Vice on eBay, and I ordered another one, and I absolutely love these things. They're 1930s, 1940s, and this came, it was all rusty and everything, but I got it sandblasted and then repainted it. I love the bright blue, but and that's not, I don't think that's their traditional color. I think it was kind of more of a light green, so I'm not being accurate, but I really like that vise a lot, so I'm going to replace that vise over there with that too. Okay, so this is my main toolbox, and it's got all my measuring tools, and then go through it, pencils and stuff. All the way through, my drill bits and stuff are in there, and then I've got chisels in here. I have 3 sets of chisels. I have a set of chisels to bead on. I have a set of chisels for paring, and I've got some dovetail chisels too. This still needs some work. Haven't got that quite figured out. And, you know, going through just a bunch of different stuff, sharpening parts, all my upholstery stuff. And then my planes are in here. So I am not necessarily a traditionalist when it comes to a full-on traditionalist, but you know, I've got a decent set of planes that get me by. I need to get a smoothing plane. But other than that, I'm pretty good with this. A really dear friend of mine made this for me when I got back from India, I think. He did this for me. So I was doing some coopering. So he made a Cooper plane for me. He went to college in the Redwoods for 9 months. So he's got the traditional built into him. So yeah. And then love these things. So I've got all, you know, my screws and stuff are in these bins. And I have a whole bank of bins over there with all this different hardware, and I have a bank of bins over here. And then over here, again, more drawers. This is more of the bigger tools. All my router bits up here. Routers here. What's in here? Oh, just miscellaneous stuff, including a Dremel. And a drill bit sharpener, which I need to use desperately. Then my other power tools. So you know, I'm sure some of the others have gotten into that too, but you know, I have all Makita now because you buy a Makita cordless tool and then you have to stick with Makita because that's the batteries that work for you. So, you know, if you went with DeWalt, then you have all DeWalt. So, but this thing, I don't, you know, these, I always thought these saws, my mind just went completely blank. The saws that go on the track saw, I thought they were kind of silly, and I didn't understand why anybody would need one. But I did our whole kitchen upstairs, and I did an island that had a waterfall edge on it, and I needed a saw that would cut the miter for the waterfall edge. So I got this and a couple of tracks for it, and it is absolutely amazing. I don't know how I lived without a track saw. So I hate to admit that, but anyway, so that already did that. More tools, and then all my cordless drills. I did get some Milwaukees. I love these little Milwaukees. They're great for little things. And then that cabinet's got, again, all the tools that didn't make it up onto the pegboard are all piled in here. And then all of my rasps. I do a lot of shaping, so I love rasps. I'd love to tell you the Nicholsons, and Taylor Tool Works. I don't know if you guys have anybody's ordered from them, but they come up with some deals and stuff that are really great. But this is my favorite shaping tool ever in the history of the world. And it's a number 11 Nicholson, and I absolutely love this. And it's starting to get worn, so I always have my eyes open for Nicholson rasps, and they had a deal on these Nicholsons, and they're American made, and they're not quite as good, but they're actually a lot more aggressive, which I like in some cases. Other cases I'm not as crazy about, but yeah, love that. And then these Japanese rasps are awesome. Absolutely love those. Let's see, and then I've got more hardware. I'm a hardware nut. my files and stuff. And more hardware. And my taps and dies and wire brushes. More hardware. More hardware. Oh, and then tape. I love tape. I have a lot of tape. So, you know. Let's see, then that corner's gotta get very, oh, my collection of Star Wars things, that's my nerd. And these are, what are they? There's a thing, they're made in Japan and it's kind of this combination of samurai and Star Wars, so. And then that top thing, I thought I would show you guys, and you probably guys know that, but it's window panels. 10 rules of thumb, and that was kind of nice. And then basically, I can read them really fast because you might not be able to read them. If you're in love with an idea, you are no judge of its beauty or something. It's difficult to see the whole picture when you're inside the frame. Number 3 is after learning the tricks of the trade, don't think you know the trade. And that's, a lot of us suffer from that. You hear and apprehend what you already know. The dog that stays on the porch will find no bones. Never state a problem to yourself in the same terms it was brought to you. That's one I have to remember all the time, because people will, if I do a commission, they'll present me with a the problem statement, and I kind of have to think it through, and I always recite that, so I have to think of it from a different vantage point. If it's offbeat or surprising, it's probably useful. If you don't expect the unexpected, you will not find it.
I can't
Like
do
that.
that. All right.
Don't get too serious is number 9. And if you hit the bullseye every time, the target is way too near. I like that one too. And then this upper cabinet, this a whiteboard, this had my list of pieces that I had to make. And then I've got all of my glues and stuff are up here. So I've got a bin with super glues and stuff. And then my sandpapers here. All my
Chris, can I ask you a question?
Chris, question.
The Wendell Castle made me remind you, if you had to identify what in your woodworking you would consider your Achilles heel, like perfectionism or something like that, is there something that comes to mind?
That's a good question. Can I answer it a little later? Let me think about that.
Okay.
And I'll answer it. I promise I'll answer that.
Okay.
What's my Achilles heel? Good question. Let's finish the workshop and then. So kind of going back into this corner, I've got a Grizzly 8-inch joiner. Oh, and we didn't talk about, I've got a Grizzly 12-inch disc and 6-inch belt sander. And then I've got a Rikon bandsaw. This Rikon, I'm not gonna swear by, it's okay. That was one where I was saving good money, and I thought this was gonna be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it's okay. So, but it works for me.
Yeah, if you can't come up with something, I'll try to.
She has a lot of my Achilles heels.
Okay, we're talking about the joiner.
Yep, so we got an 8-inch joiner, and then I've got a drum sander. I got this at a point in time where I was gonna, I got a project, a commission with a designer out of California, and they were going to, it sounded like they were gonna sell the heck out of this, a couple of pieces of my furniture, and there were vent laminations. And so I got this because I knew I was gonna have to do a lot of sanding pieces to do vent laminations. And that project ended up flopping, but I got that instead, and I'm actually really happy with it. I don't have a lot of patience. That's one of my Achilles heels, is I lack patience. And it's kind of funny because I was a teacher for 22 years, and I lack patience, but I absolutely loved working with students. So I don't know, but that thing, you really have to take your time. You can't rush it. So, then I've got, this is lumber that I will probably use in the near future. So I've got a lumber rack for that. And it's kind of in a little bit disarray right now. And then I've got a rack for all of my, clamps, which I can move around. And you can never have too many clamps, never have too many clamps. You always need some kind of different kind of clamp, and then I also have a bunch of clamps over there. And, so then back here, 20-inch Laguna planer. And then
Behind me, but
I have a Raycon spindle sander, which I have yet to make a stand for. I have never used it, but I need to make a stand for it so I can use it. And then all my plywood rack, and then all of my stacks of junk. I'm gonna use this rack for shorter pieces of wood, and then some upholstery fabric, upholstery foam and stuff. I kind of need to, I really, yeah. And what's his name? The guy that was on Mythbusters, and now he's on YouTube. And somebody watch him. I can't think of his name.
Adam Savage.
Adam Savage. I absolutely love, I'm full of it. I love him, and I like, he is so articulate, it's unbelievable. And I like that one of the times he said, you know, he's, a lot of his videos recently have been about arranging a shop. And if you want to see a shop that's full of stuff, holy cow. But he said, you know, organizing your shop is a forever project. You will always be, you'll organize it one way, and then if you change your way of working, you're going to organize it another way. And if you get a project that makes you need a specific tool or specific materials, you're going to adjust your shop for that also. So, you know, so, but that idea that the shop is forever morphing into something else, something different, is very much the case, which I'm, you know, it's kind of funny because I love, and you'll see in my presentation, I like taking chances, I like this stuff, but at the same time, I need to have a base, and I need to have something that is consistent. So that's kind of, it's interesting with me. Anyway, I think that's about it. The mess back here, and I actually grabbed a couple things. While we're, what's happening?
6:43.
Okay. Okay.
You wanna go?
Oh, metal
You
shop.
got a whole shop, yeah.
So this is the metal shop. And it's kind of in disarray and needs to be swept. I did a lot of the work that I did for that show was metal. And so there is, you know, there's probably 50 pounds of ground steel filings on the floor. But this is basically the metal shop, and I've got a drill press in here. I have an old Delta band, 14-inch bandsaw that I'm going to convert to a metal cutting bandsaw someday. I have a milling machine that a dear friend of mine who passed away, his son gave it to me. And then I've got a MIG welder, and I have a plasma cutter / TIG welder. Never used the TIG welder before, but I've used the plasma cutter. This is an old dust collector. So my dust collector died in Iowa, and I was not going to get a new dust collector for Iowa, knowing that I was moving out here. So I got this cheap one, and it's a Ween. I tell you what, I absolutely loved it. It worked fan-freaking-tastic for me. It was kind of shocking that because it was cheap, and I think I got it off of Amazon. No, I got it off of Amazon. But that's in here because I'm going to convert that to a fume extractor, which is basically, it's a dust collector, except you've got filters, and it sucks the fumes through those filters and filters that fume out, and then blows the air back into the room. So these rooms, this room will get a vent fan in the wall. That is something that will happen hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then I'll have a vent fan in the other room also. One of the things I don't have here is a finished room. I I decided, I'm going back to full-time baking. I'm gonna spray everything. And you know what? The planet doesn't need more spray. So I'm going to try to stick with wipe-on finishes, that kind of stuff. If I do need to spray something, it'll be a rattle can, so it'll just be a spray can. I use Minwax polyurethane on all my steel, and I absolutely love it. I've used other finishes. I've tried all kinds of other finishes. It's the one finish that works the best for me. So I will do that. Okay. Any questions about that?
Do you do any blacksmithing?
Blacksmithing.
I used to do quite a bit, and I do very, very little now, but I actually have I have a little, forge that I made. A friend of mine gave me the plans for it. I made a little forge out of some fire bricks, and I need to get that set up, but honestly, really, come over here real quick. The main thing that I would use the forge for is to heat up metal so I could do like a bend or something. There's a couple designs that I would love to, instead of having just really clean, round rod, I'd like to pound on it and have it be a little more rustic. And I might do that, but I tell you, where I am, I can find a blacksmith that'll do that for me, and I don't necessarily have the facilities to do it. One of the really cool things and amazing things out here. So when I was in Iowa, I have done in quite a bit of, I've had to have stuff water jet cut. I've had to have stuff CNC laser cut or plasma cut. And I'm talking about steel. And then CNC router stuff for wood. And well, anyway, all of that stuff. And I would always I was in Ames. Des Moines not that far away, but Des Moines would be the place I'd always have to go. Water jet cutting, I'd have to order it out. Here, I can go to Fort Collins, which is 30 minutes away, and there's a water jet cutter there. I can literally see the house of a buddy of mine that has a CNC plasma cutter that will do all the plasma cutting for me. There's blacksmiths up here. What was the other? Oh, the CNC router. There's a guy down in Fort Collins that does that too. So laser cutting. So it's amazing the access. Oh, and then the other thing with this piece, I have to have stuff machined. I don't have a machine lathe or a metal lathe, and I had to have this stuff metal lathe. There's a machinist that lives a mile away. And she did that stuff for me. So it's awesome to have these. I love collaborating with people too. So
Chris, just time check. We're about 45, 50 minutes into our hour and a half. So
let's go do PowerPoint.
Yep.
And I will blow through that really quick. I can blather on.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Tammy, thanks for all your help, by the way. You're doing
Yeah.
great.
oh, you're welcome. I hope you never get too seasick. So it's gonna go to share. I can find it.
Should be on the bottom in the center.
Oh, the bright green one? Yeah, that'd be too easy.
That'd be it. Yeah,
Okay.
All right, Chris,
that's
you
it.
want to change your mode?
Yes.
Okay, it's all yours.
So is that in presentation mode? So you guys just see the one says Chris Martin has been a crazy trip so far?
No, you want to click on where it says slideshow.
Oh.
There.
I didn't click it.
There you go.
Okay, cool. So, hi, I'm Chris Martin. This is actually a piece or a picture from about 2 weeks ago. This is all the pieces that I made for that show, minus, I think, 2 chairs. Can you guys see my cursor if I use that? Can you see this? Looks like a bug flying around the screen.
Yes. Yep.
So here, this piece and this piece, I worked with a leather tooler down in Fort Collins, and we made those 2 pieces together, which was awesome. So, okay, so I'm gonna go back. This is mid-90s. So I was doing this kind of work and somebody asked me about forging. So this steel rod, I forged the ends of it and then did all the bending and stuff on it. This is forged, all the poles are forged. So I was doing that kind of work, kind of gothic. And then early 2000s, doing this kind of work. And it's kind of funny because I kind of have gone back to this style. I always joked with somebody and said, I'd had this in a show and I told somebody that the plumb bob is what held the table up. And if you lifted the plumb bob up, the table would fall off. And they believed me. It didn't really. This is kind of the first piece that really got me into doing this hollow form steel. And then, so in cantilevered, I just am intrigued by cantilevered tabletops. So did this piece 2002-ish. In the leather work in there. A couple other pieces I meant to pull that one out because there is no wood in that. Yes. You know what? I didn't put this in any order. So this is in no order whatsoever. This is 2008. And this is kind of more along the lines of the table that I'm going to do for the seminar. And this is all bur oak, the wood in the top. In the center is steel, and it's from an old garbage truck, and it's a dining table, which cracks me up. Yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize. This is all over the place. So, more pieces. This is kente cloth, and this is made in Ghana, and it is unique to Ghana. And so I have worked with kente weavers. I actually had them make this cloth for me, and it is specific patterns, and each one has meaning. And this one I know is Makoa. I honestly don't know I can't remember what this is called because it's in the local language name and I had a hard time pronouncing it to begin with. So blank. This is 2008-ish also. Probably, well, one of the more difficult pieces I ever did. And so this is all steel. The base is all steel. And then this is beech, quarter-sawn beechwood veneer. And then the drawers are in beech also. In the whole story with these pieces, I went to Czech Republic and did research on Czech Cubism, which is they applied Cubist ideas to furniture, architecture, all that different kind of stuff. So made this series of pieces. This up to that point was the most difficult piece I ever made. This is made out of 17 different pieces that I had to join every single one. Each piece had a different angle and I had to join each one to fit into the next one. It was an absolute blast too. I did it out of basswood and then I had an auto body guy paint it for me. The base is steel. And then the inside is Carpathian, right? Apsilia burl. And then I cast sterling silver poles for the inside.
What was your joinery method for all those pieces?
Splines. So
Okay.
I got all those done and then I went to the table saw and set it up so I could do splines through every single piece. Yeah. So in 2008, I got tenured in 2006 and I was trying to decide what to do for sabbatical, and over a bottle of wine one evening in dinner, Tammy suggested that we do Peace Corps. I'm like, okay, we could do Peace Corps. So I checked into it and my director was willing to let me take a 2-year, I got a year sabbatical and a 1-year leave. So went to Ghana and West Africa. And this is a village called Donkor Krom, and Donkor means village, and Donkor, Krom is village or town, and Donkor is slave. So we lived in a town called Slave Town, and it's a long story, but it's basically two tribes. One was the landowners, and the other one were the workers of the land. I taught visual arts, so this is a visual arts classroom in Ghana. And DASS is Donko Chrome Agric Senior Secondary School. The woodworking there, this picture on the right I think is hilarious. So that is a joiner planer, and they just never clean up. So I'm literally standing on the ground, but that's a full height planer. So there's 2.5 feet of sawdust under my feet. And the left-hand side is a typical woodworking shop. They had a power tool. The bandsaw, this was in our village. Yeah, this was in our village. And bandsaw, they hadn't had a blade for the bandsaw in years, so they never got to use it. Carving was another really big thing in Ghana. Drums, particularly, and this tourist market on the left-hand side, the drums were made for actually a hotel in Accra, which is the capital city. But they'll make drums. Drumming is a really big thing there. This is really interesting. So Ga coffins. Ga is a tribal group, smaller tribal group, and early in the 1950s, a guy, carpenter, was making a palanquin. This is a palanquin for a chief. And it was one of the primary things that carpentry shop made. And the chief died in the process. So he suggested that they bury the chief in the palanquin. And then it became tradition to bury chiefs in coffins that represent, and usually it's a power animal for chiefs. So it would be a cheetah or a lion or a leopard or, something like that. Then the common people started wanting them. So the fisherman would be buried in a fish. A carpenter buried in a hammer, which they were working on that when I visited them back in 2016. And then a beer bottle. I don't know who would be buried in a beer bottle, or in, their family. Would their family really have them buried in a beer bottle if they were an alcoholic? I don't know. A lot of these anymore are being made for museums around the world. So 2010, I returned to the States after 27 months in Ghana. And Asasawa means all mixed up in Shui. And so this is, can you guys see me? Yeah, okay. That was a joke. Kind of stood out like a sore thumb. And coming back, all mixed up, returning the adjustment thing, and everybody talks to me about the adjustment. Adjusting to living in Ghana was easy. It was so easy. Coming back here after Paul, we were talking about Ghana maybe time and meetings and all that kind of stuff. You kind of become very relaxed. And coming back here, the intensity of culture here, and also the choices. We got an infection in our noses. I'm going to go through this as I'm talking. We got an infection in our noses, and we went to the pharmacy to get something, and walked up to this wall, and it was full of all these. And we literally Tammy and I started crying, and the pharmacist came out and asked if he could help. And we explained our situation. And so he gave us a nose spray that helped. But anyway, this is the very first piece I made after I got back. And this is making you guys a little bit envious again. So I was walking down the street in my village in Donkokrom with my counterpart, a friend of mine from Ghana that was Ghanaian. And there was a pile of boards laying on the ground. They were black. And I said, oh, so they use a black pesticide. They spray wood once they cut it, and all their wood is cut with chainsaws. They don't have sawmills. So it was this really rough cut 2x4s that somebody was going to build a house out of. And I mentioned, I'm like, oh, they spray it before they even put it up. And he said, no, that's ebony. And it was this pile of 14-foot long 2x4s chainsawed out. It was all ebony. I bought 6 of them for $28. And I ended up making a crate out of it to ship everything back to the United States, because you can't necessarily export ebony. And so I built a crate out of it. And that money supposedly went back to anti-poaching practices. I doubt it. So the conservation officer probably pocketed the money. But so I made this piece out. It's all, and I use mostly hand tools and a lathe for it. Donkor is slave. And the beads on this bottom part are glass beads made in Ghana, and typically they were used to trade for slaves. The reason I have the picture is the top of the table has those markings on it, and it's scarification. And this is what points out the Awe tribe, the Awe tribe in Chrome, who were the slaves. And they continue to do the scarifications on their faces just as a point of pride now, but before it was used to point out that they were the slaves and the people that didn't have scars were not. Another piece, where we lived, we had to take a boat to get to where we lived. And these were the boats that we took inside of and said, "Oh Lord, help me," which you get into those boats that leak like sieves to go across the lake, and kind of did think that. Prima Piwa is square peg, round hole. It's kind of how I felt in Ghana a lot of the time, trying to fit in, and I kind of stuck out like this pink chick. If they paint their chicks that color because hawks won't eat them if they're that color. If they're a natural color, the hawks will eat them. Here's the kente cloth again. This is our village chief and a sub chief at one of the ceremonies that we were at, and they're wearing kente cloth.
Is that ebony?
No, I'm sorry. I was going to actually tell you guys that. So no, this is walnut. So I did walnut and then I ebonized it. So kind of really difficult shaping. I love doing this though. Just the curves and everything. These joints were kind of floating in space. So I had to figure out how to join those. So this is Cabinet of Curiosities, and I'm going to go through this. This is one of the last pieces I made kind of in that body of work. 35 drawers, seven hidden compartments. And I decided I wanted to check and see if I really had the chops to do woodworking. I hadn't really, I was in Peace Corps for 2 years. I didn't really do much woodworking when I was there. So did this, took me 2 years off and on to make this, but and it's all the woods I brought back pieces of wood and different pieces that I just had around. I think there's 16 different species. So this is the front of it. It's bark paper is the panels. So this is opened. And so pay attention to the top left-hand corner. So then that panel folds down and it's the exact same layout. And I did all of the pieces of wood are proportionally correct within 0.005 of an inch because I'm insane. And then that opens and you get the exact same thing. And then that opens, you get the exact same thing. So I kind of did this. It was really a lot of fun. And surprisingly, it worked. All the drawers worked fantastically in Iowa. When we moved out here, these drawers do not open very well anymore. I've got to adjust them to get them to work. So then in 2012, I had a colleague that did a lot of her research in India, and I convinced her to take me to India with her. So I did a 6-week design residency in 2012 in Ahmedabad. So that is just south of Pakistan. Amazing handicraft area. So I ended up meeting and working with a lathe turner. This is a Nil. Did I take that? Yeah. I'll go more into depth on this stuff at the seminar that opening evening. So this is a traditional, actually contemporary lathe turner. This is how they use lathes. This is their lathe. So they have a rope that attaches directly to the piece of wood, and it attaches to a motor that's on the roof of his shop or on the ceiling of his shop. And those are his tools, and they're all hand forged steel. He has a blacksmith in the village make those for him. I also met and worked with the Ajrak block cutters, and they make these printing blocks. So this bottom right-hand corner, that's what traditionally a printing block's used for. But I actually had them make blocks for me, and I use them in drawer faces and other things. The other thing that was amazing about that was the technology in Gujarat state. So in Ahmedabad alone, I had a place that could do 5-axis CNC routing. I had people who knew how to use Rhino and Form Z, not Form Z, and we were just talking about it, 360, something 360. My mind went blank. Anyway, they could
Fusion 360.
Fusion, thank you, Fusion 360, they could do the computer programming for that. And then plasma cutting, really anything I needed. And I did a body of work there. So in 2016, I got a Fulbright to go back to India, and I worked with these artisans intensively and made this body of work. And so, yeah, great experience. And then I came back and I decided what I really wanted to do was work with artisans and help them sustain their traditional livelihoods, and then mix and feature their craft in my work. And so I put together this body of work based on that. So this is the lathe turner and mill. This is called kalamkari, and it's hand printed or hand painted fabric, and worked with him in Ahmedabad. This is the drawer faces. And then the coffin makers from Ghana. So this is the stuff I ended up doing. I ended up befriending the grandson of the guy who started this tradition. And so they make the bases, ship them to me. And that's a whole nother story we can talk about in November. And then I put tops on them, I clean them up and put a top and a base, and then market them. Some other pieces, the pulls on these are done by brass casters in Ghana. Couple other pieces. And then in December of 2023, like I said, I moved to Colorado and started doing, I got into a show in Jackson Hole, and I decided to shift gears. And so actually this piece I made in 2014, but this is another version of that. Did these pieces for the show. So kind of shifted my stuff, made it a little bit more Western for the market. So by the way, I do need to make a living at this. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this work. Some waterfall tables. I got all these pieces of wood at Amana Colonies when I was back there in April, I think. Anyway, or early summer. Rocking chair. I've always wanted to make a rocker and did this. It's quite comfortable. I was kind of surprised. So all this stuff I made in the last 2.5, 3 months. So the music stand, well, that is a new music stand. I've made 4 of those total, and I've sold 3 of them. Okay, any questions about my work? And I will talk more about my experiences and collaborations and stuff in November, but if anybody has any quick questions.
The undercarriage of quite a few pieces look like sticks that are riveted together, attached together. You like that kind of
so like,
are almost thrown together.
Yeah, like these chairs you're talking about, or I'm sorry, the chair, are you talking about these kind of branch forms, or that you muted?
The base of one of your chests.
Oh yeah, that, and then the hall table too, and that kind of collage. Yeah, I call it assemblages, and I do like that. I think that's kind of fun, and that came from Ghana. And Ghana, they put stuff together, best they can, however they can, and that's kind of where that came from. And then there's a lot of people out there kind of doing that now, but that's kind of where that influence came from. I do enjoy that, and then all of those they're lap jointed and then pinned, so which is a real pain in the butt, because I don't know if you noticed, but some of them, they don't go from, you got 2 pieces, they don't just lay over the front of those 2 pieces, they lay over the front of one piece and the back of the other piece, so you got to angle all those lap joints. It's time consuming, but again, I enjoy metal because you can screw it up and you can fix it. But it's loud and it's hot and it's dirty. I enjoy woodworking because it's meditative, and you can, really get into it. I love sanding. A lot of people hate sanding. I love sanding because you really bring the character of the material out. So, but yeah. Good question.
And how about the balance between, you know, sort of wild creativity and comfort?
It's that was one of the things I stressed at the thing. Those chairs are quite comfortable. Function, I absolutely believe in form follows function. That whatever I do, it's got to function. And it's funny because I grew up in a very I wouldn't say conservative, but reasonably conservative family, but practical, profoundly practical family. And I think I'd have probably been a sculptor if I had grown up in a more liberal family. But I believe very strongly in function. This show that I was at, there were a lot of pieces that I kind of looked at them and I'm like, you did that just because you thought it looked cool, and it doesn't really function that well. And I don't appreciate that in the same way as a piece that somebody can design extremely well and be very comfortable, or function extremely well. That's important, very important. Yeah.
So you said all those pieces you made in the last 2.5 months, how much design time do you have into them?
Those, to be quite honest, a lot of them I had designed probably in the past 2 years, 3 years, and they were sitting in my sketchbook waiting to be
Okay.
done. Yeah. So design time, that where does design start and end? You know what I mean?
So it doesn't end until the final
Yeah.
finish is dry,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So, and there were a number of pieces I really wrestled over as far as design time. It was that it's the material, the fabric decisions on some of the upholstered pieces. I didn't show you a number of pieces because there's not much wood in them. I kind of tried to focus on more wood in this presentation. In November, I'll probably put some more of the pieces and then explain kente more in depth, and in wax print African fabric more in depth. But yeah, and Tammy's really good sounding board. She's extremely she's not schooled in design, but I think hanging out with me as much as she has, she's gotten a lot better at it. And you just need somebody to talk to talk that stuff through. I had a chair, one of the pieces I finished, it was not in this presentation, but I actually finished the form of the chair 3 years ago, and it sat in my shop for 3 years because I did not know how to upholster it, and I had no idea. And we sat down in less than 15 minutes, we figured out exactly how to do it, and I think it's amazing. So, yeah, it's the design time thing it's all over the place. I've got pieces that I still, are half made because I haven't quite figured out what the next step is. So, anything else? Okay.
Chris, this is Ed. You said you were going to tell us about the project that you're going to work on.
It's
Yeah,
next.
we are. Work on for the show. So here we are. So I am going to do a coffee table. And I'm going to just go through this real quick. Please forgive the photography. I did it with my Droid phone with a crappy camera on it. And but this, hopefully it gives you just a basic idea of what I'm going to do. So I made a little 3/16 scale model of this. And this is very basic form. And this is kind of right now what I'm thinking. And we were just talking about design. This is the first generation of it. It's gonna change. How it changes, I don't know. The top is going to be more complex than this. But what I'm going to do is talk about, kind of go through the process of, cutting your own veneer or ordering veneer, how to order veneer, where to order veneer, what kind of veneer to order, that kind of stuff. And then, processing it. I'm going to talk about design a lot, because I think that's kind of my strength. I don't claim to be the most amazing woodworker in the history of the world. Yeah, so this is a couple of examples. This is the top of a table that I made back in 2016. This is all scraps. These were all scraps from, actually, a lot of it's scraps from the Cabinet of Curiosities. All resawed into veneers to put on the top. This is a piece I did just last year. This is a panel for, I think I even took the picture out, and I'll show you guys that later. But it's a hall bench, basically, and this is a panel that goes behind it. So, and this is sycamore. This is kind of sort of what I'm thinking of as far as the layout for the veneers on the top of that table of, whoops, sorry, of, go back, of that table. So more complex. Yeah, so that, and then the base of it, and again, I'm gonna go back real quick. I did this because I don't have a design in my head yet for this. I will, and I'll bring that. But what I want to talk to you guys about is, you know, interacting potentially with a CNC person, or just introducing another material to your pieces. But these were pieces that I made initially in India. These are silhouettes of traditional lathe patterns that the lathe turner that I worked with used in a lot of his work. And so I had this stuff cut for me and powder coated, and I will do the same thing. But, you know, we can talk about design. Does this design, would it make sense to put a green piece underneath it with curvies and stuff in it when it's a very pretty, whoops, sorry, pretty geometric form? I don't know, and I got to work my brain through that. Also, the legs, I'm not absolutely sure if I do wood legs. I might, if they're wood, they're going to be hexagonal to match the top, not round. But I, you know, I spent enough time making this model, I wasn't going to kill myself over doing little hexagonal legs for that. So, yeah, so that's basically, we will talk about, you know, the veneering in general. Let's see, I think I'll dabble a little bit, talk about maybe marquetry. One of the things I have written down is marquetry kits. I don't know if you guys know, you can order those things online now. There's a company that does pre-made, and I'll show you some examples, pre-made marquetry, basically patterns that you can buy and put into your own designs to make things interesting. I'm looking at this real quick. We'll talk about the different tools that you would use. And again, I'm not utterly unorthodox. There's a lot of people who are crazy unorthodox. I'm a little unorthodox with kind of some of the ways that I work with stuff. And you guys might have way better ideas than I do. And I beg you to share those, because that would be awesome. Let's see, again, talking about design, and then cutting and taping, gluing all that stuff together, gluing it up. I'm going to talk about vacuum bagging. For the size of this table, it's a 3-foot diameter table that, you know, we could get a press, but that's a really, really big veneer press to do something that size. So anyway, that is about it. Any questions about the project? Anything you guys would like to hear from me during the project, during the seminar? No? Are you all sold on it now?
Is there joinery involved?
As far as, no, honestly, well, you know, putting the veneers together, other than that, no. There will be joinery between if I do wood legs, but it's going to be, you know, that, and I'll discuss that. You know, there is so when you introduce a different material, you've got to consider how that attaches to the wood, and you have to consider expansion, contraction of the wood. You know, the wood's moving all over the place, the metal's not. How do you attach something and know that it's going to stay that way for an extended period of time? So a lot of people, that's something that they forget about, or you just epoxy it and you think it's going to be good. But there's other ways you have to do that, mechanical connections and stuff, and we'll talk about that too. Yeah.
What is this, what substrate do you think you'll use?
I probably will use, and we're going to talk about substrates too, but I think I will use Baltic birch. And so I've done this. I showed you that dining table where they have the garbage truck stuff, the metal in the top of it. That table is actually, the tabletop is actually, if I remember right, it's about 5 inches thick, because you can see the underneath of this. I like doing these tapered underneath forms. And if I'll have to decide how I'm going to do this. It's a coffee table, so I'll probably just do a couple layers of 1/2 inch Baltic birch and glue that up. Only thing, you have to consider, weight. That's a real concern. That hall table that I did, that I showed you guys earlier, that's in my shop, that top that's made out of mesquite, it's 2 inches thick. And I did Baltic birch, and then I cut the whole thing. It's 12 inches deep. So I wanted to cut this kind of swoop on the bottom of it. And I cut the swoop and then veneered over that. But I was concerned about the top being so heavy that it was going to be top heavy. So I drilled a bunch of holes with a Forstner bit in it to lighten it up. So, and I'll talk about that kind of stuff as far as weight. The other really cool thing about doing tables that have that kind of hollow bottom is you can hide stuff in there that someday, if it ever breaks, it falls out and then somebody finds it. And I did the dining table that I did. The couple, they had 2 children that were 8 years old, 8 and 10, and they had, I put a bunch of they had all these projects that they had done, and they didn't know what they were going to do with them. I said, give them to me, I'll put them in the table. So there's a bunch of their daughters' drawings and crayon and stuff that are in that table, and then a newspaper from the day that I closed it up. So
Will you be talking about resawing veneer?
yeah, I will. I probably will not do it because, one of the things to talk about is, and actually it can be done on a 14-inch bandsaw, but you know what, maybe that reminds me, when we do the bandsaw thing, I'll have you guys bring a bandsaw. Let's get a wide blade for it too, if we can. But yeah, I'll talk
How
about.
wide, Chris? 3/4?
Say that again.
How wide a blade?
Probably 1/2 inch. A 14-inch bandsaw, I think 1/2 inch, or if you can do 3/4, that'd be great. But a 1/2
Yeah,
inch is
we'll do 3/4.
okay. Cool. Yeah, we'll do but the only thing is, we'll talk about resawing, and I'll probably resaw a little bit, but if you're really doing it for real, then you need to have a drum sander and or a planer, and we're going to have too many tools. So I'm going to try to do this. I was talking to Paul about it. I'm going to kind of do it as like a cooking show. So I'll maybe veneer a couple pieces, or sorry, resaw a couple pieces, but I'll bring all the material and it'll be prepped and ready to go. I'll also talk about, one of the other things you have to think about is you'll do a substrate, but, and I've done it where I'm ready to dive in. I'm like, oh, but the edges are raw plywood. What do you do? So, I will bring it prep, but I will frame, I'll make an octagon or a pentagon, hexagon. I will make a hexagon and I will frame it in solid wood before I bring it. But we'll talk about that too, and other ways to do that. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Chris, I wanted to thank you for your time tonight. I really feel like I've done such an inadequate job explaining your background and your experience on what we posted online so far. It's great to have you talk through it, and it's so intriguing how your travels and your experience have influenced your work, and I think that's going to be really bring something exciting to the summit this year.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's good to leave a little bit of mystery there too.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, it is completely, the Peace Corps experience in Ghana changed my life utterly. In the way I work, You know, all of my work prior to that was very designerly and well made. But after that, it's narrative. My work is narrative. It means a lot more to me. The collaboration with artisans is so profoundly fulfilling. So yeah, yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments anybody would like to add tonight before we sign off here?
No, thanks for putting it together.
Sure. And I would just remind everybody, and I'm sure everybody's seen the emails for this, but we do have a guild in-person meeting tomorrow night at Storm Trees in Eden Prairie. And take a look at your email. Should be a good meeting and a good chance for us to be together in person again. And Chris, thank you so much for your time today and for putting all this together. We're looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
Absolutely welcome.
All
Thank
right.
you for putting it together.
Sure.
Okay. We'll see.